Hi there and welcome to this review of the daily devotionals from One Way UK for the week 14th of February, so Valentine's Day, through to the 18th of February. And I'm smiling because apart from not being able to say February very well, so Valentine's Day, well, we had our own little love-in for this whole week because we were using the Authorised version of the Bible, the King James version of the Bible, first published in 1611, and so we're celebrating its 400th birthday this week, and just for this week. Didn't really complicate the readings very much, except that the prophet Jonah is called the prophet Jonas in the New Testament of the Authorised version of the Bible, the King James version of the Bible. And so we'll see how we go. But you know, we reminded ourselves of the Queen's speech, which was actually the subject of the Queen's speech. It was not sport. That was an illustration that she was using. The subject was the 400th anniversary of the publication of the King James Bible. And so it's good to remember that and have a look at it. Go back and have a look at that speech again on YouTube or on the Royal Channel or whatever. It's well worth looking at. She gave a very good speech on Christmas Day. Many of the events we read about in the Old Testament foreshadow Jesus' ministry. And for this week, we've been looking at Jesus talking about Jonah and the events surrounding Jonah's adventure in the big fish and his journey to Nineveh and what he said at Nineveh. And is there something that we can actually sort of summarize to sort of give us an insight into the way the Bible operates? And the answer to that is yes. But before we get on to that particular point, I find it's interesting that, of course, many of us are familiar with the story of Jonah and the whale. It doesn't come from the Bible, it comes from man's imagination, because the Bible is absolutely clear, and that is that the creature is a big fish. However, it's easy to understand why this error grew, because we read in Matthew 12:40 in the King James version of the Bible, the Authorised version of the Bible, it's the two names given to it. For as Jonas was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. Now, if you actually look at the original language, as it were, in which the New Testament was written into the Greek, it actually means not whale, but huge or gaping-mouthed fish. That's a straightforward mistranslation. And if you like to check up in your encyclopedias, check up online and look at the whale shark, you will see that amongst other things it is a huge and gaping-mouthed fish. So again, I'm not saying that it's the whale shark that was responsible for rescuing Jonah. I'm merely pointing out that things which we think are incredible or impossible because of how we've been taught them, in fact could well be perfectly possible, even aside from God operating a special miracle. But let's go back to this point of, where can the big impact come from our looking at Jesus and how he spoke about Jonah. So this is the sign, the one sign this generation shall see. Well, the thing is that, to me, I find it fascinating that Jesus said, the men of Nineveh shall rise up in the judgment with this generation and shall condemn it, for they repented at the preaching of Jonas, and behold, greater than Jonas is here. Implication being, you guys listening to me, this is Jesus speaking, you guys listening to me, you're not repenting. And, my words I'm saying is, I can see in your hearts, I know what you're going to do to me, and the words that I'm speaking are really going over your head. They're not entering into your heart. You're not coming to that meeting point, place with God where you're repenting. But these guys, these wicked people in Nineveh, they did just that. They connected with God through repentance. And because of that, they're going to be in a position of judgment, not condemnation. But you see, it's like getting a glimpse into the spirit realm, really, because spiritual life is cross-generational. God wanted Jonah to deliver a message which would result in the Ninevites turning to him and turning away from their sin. And in heaven we'll find Assyrians who responded to Jonah's preaching, which is an amazing thought, but we're going to find them there. And there'll be some people missing who didn't respond to Jesus' preaching, which is extraordinary. Jonah said, "Yet 40 days and Nineveh shall be overthrown." Jesus said, "Come unto me, all ye that labour and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Now the content of those two messages is entirely different from one another. And yet the intention is identical. They both have the same objective: repentance and salvation for all the hearers of that message, whether delivered through Jonah or whether delivered through Jesus. And that is the heart of God. What he wants you and me to do is to actually take a look at our lives and say, this is not good enough. We really need to follow God. And to follow God, we need to recognize the things in our lives that are not of God, the things that are not good. And that's going to be different for each one of us. There's a commonality of human experience, but at the same time, we are all individuals. And what one person gets involved in, another person would never go near. So it's God, in delivering these general words, is actually speaking to our hearts, and it's our hearts and our consciences that convert that message into something which, like the people in Nineveh, we can grab hold of and say, "Lord, I really am truly sorry for that. Help me. Please forgive me." It's good news. 400 years of the King James Bible. People have been in love with it for that long. I think it is fair to comment that it would be wrong to regard that Bible as if it had been brought down the mountain by Moses. It is a great piece of literature. It also, for its day, was a good translation, a very good translation. But certain evidences have come to life. There's been discoveries of other documents from ancient times which record passages of the Bible, passages of the Gospel, so on and so forth. There's been advances in the understanding of the ancient languages and in what they mean. And without going into any great detail at all, there are passages in the Authorised version of the Bible, King James version of the Bible, that lack clarity simply because people at that time did not have the information that translators of the Bible have had since the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and so on and so forth. And so our modern versions of the Bible, the translators of them have the advantage of all the scholarship that has gone into a Bible translation, which is enormous over the past 400 years. I shall not be transferring, as it were, my affections to the King James version of the Bible, and I respect it greatly, and it was the Bible I started with. But I should be carrying on with more modern translations as we share these devotionals together. And in fact, It seems to be a good time just to share with you and say that we will be moving on. We'll be moving on to the book of John, the Gospel of John, and the basic translation that I shall be using for this particular devotional will be the New King James Version of the Bible. Yes, we'll still be turning to other versions to help us from time to time, such as the New Living Translation, which we've been using for over the past 8 years, and other versions, more modern translations or paraphrases such as the Message. And just as the mix will be there as normal, but the base Bible, as it were, the Bible text that we will be looking at will be the New King James Version, which was produced, I think I'm correct in saying, in the mid-80s. But anyway, that is for later on. For now, we can see this wonderful link between Jesus and Jonah. Important thing for us to remember is not to be fooled by the words we read. God's heart is that everybody should come to that point of repentance, that point of understanding that there is a God, that we don't actually match up to his standard, but he is so loving and so merciful and so gracious, he is willing to forgive any who turn to him. Have a great weekend and see you next week. God bless.